The path to mastery leads through the heart of adversity. Challenge is the raw material from which courage and strength are forged. Warriors are not defined by events. Warriors define them. Warriors conquer themselves before all else. Warriors are relentless in their service to others. Join us as we open our hearts and hone our minds to a razor's edge. It doesn't matter how slow you go, only that you do not stop. Your time is now. And now your host, Jason McKenzie.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another rantisode. Maybe I'll start calling them rantisodes instead of microdoses. I'll leave that decision for another day. So anyways, I wanted to talk about some assumptions I try to live by every day. You know, I've learned some of these through some training I've taken. So I think about September of last year, I took training called Family Connections, and it was training that is basically to help facilitate peer support groups for family members dealing with loved ones with emotional dysregulation. Like, how's that for a mouthful? So maybe a better way to put it is like when I was dealing with, when I was married to Cindy, it would have been a support group for me. But the point is that during that training, I learned some really incredible skills and some assumptions through which to look at the world. And the point of doing that is really to, it just changes the way you approach people and situations and allows you to be more open-minded to understanding their point of view. And then there's some other ones that I have kind of added in as well. Now, I want to be really clear about something too. There's plenty of times I absolutely fucking suck at this. So don't take this as me being like an expert. It's just that I'm finding that I continually get better because I'm aware of them and I practice them. And when I do practice them, they work extremely well. And that's pretty handy. So that kind of positive reinforcement is really a great way to, continue to explore how to live by these assumptions. And, but again, man, life's a journey, right? So I think it's really important to understand that as we learn new skills or new ways of thinking or whatever, that breaking those thought patterns that have been in our heads forever, like in my case, 40 something years, is not something that happens overnight. So, but I'm going to list, there's 6 assumptions. I'm going to list them and just talk briefly about them because I think if you incorporate one or more of them, you will see a difference in how you interact with people and how you understand or think about why people do some of the crazy fucking shit they do. And probably the same about yourself. So the first assumption, do I have a drum? No, I don't. I wish I had a drum roll button, but I don't have a drum roll button, and I am not going to even try to simulate a drum roll because on top of a bunch of other things, I failed grade 10 music. And that's a story for another day. But regardless, here we go. Number 1. God, I'm tempted to do a drum roll, though. No, I'm definitely not going to. Assumption number 1. Everyone is doing the best they can in the moment. So think about that for a second. Like, how many times do you look at someone doing something and think, what a fucking idiot? Like, what kind of loser would be behaving like that? And I'm sure there's been a million times and people have thought this exact same thing about you, right? But there's absolutely no doubt about that. I certainly know that people have thought that about me. But if you look look at the world or look at somebody from the perspective of that they're doing the best they can in the moment, even if the best they can do is no good, because if they could do better, they would. Okay. What that does is it really helps you surface some compassion. Like, man, if that's the best they can do, I wonder what's going on with them right now. And it's a really powerful question to ask. And it makes you a lot less judgmental in the sense that instead of judging how crappy they're doing, you can acknowledge that, man, they're doing the best they can. And we've all been in situations where we wish we could do something better and we can't. We're doing the best we can. So that's the first assumption. And again, I think the main benefit is it allows you to be a little bit more compassionate. Okay. The second assumption is the things people are doing make sense to them, even though they might make no fucking sense to you whatsoever. Because people typically do things that make sense. So let me use Cindy as an example. And it doesn't have to be somebody that's like all emotionally dysregulated or the victim of some kind of trauma or anything like that. So let's say like there was times where she would absolutely freak out on me about something. And, I looked at it like, oh my God, what you're doing makes zero sense because you're crazy. And really what it was if she was freaking out on me about something, it might be that she had been so hurt that, I was her primary like attachment, the person she was closest to. And if I did something that she perceived as hurting her, then she would just explode because it's like, oh my God, you too, you're just like all the rest of the people. So in that sense, what she was doing made perfect sense. Or let's say you're at work and somebody gets really defensive about something, like you're just having this normal conversation and they get super defensive and you're like, oh my God, like what are you getting so defensive about? And who knows why, but it might be that, they are fearful of their job. Maybe they've really fucked up recently and they're, still smarting about it, let's say, and or their boss tore a strip off them that you don't know about, and that they feel like if you question them that maybe you're doing the same thing too. And so they react in a way that makes sense to them. And so if you allow yourself to, assume that what they're doing makes sense to them, it makes you able to be more curious about why actually does that? Why does that kind of behavior or that thought process make sense to them? And if you, it allows you to be more inquisitive, more curious, which is a really fundamental thing, sort of behavior for creating human connection, right? Is truly wanting to understand what people are doing or why people are doing the things they do. The third assumption is there's no single truth, so stop looking for it. Like, come on, we all look at the world through our own lens. And stop expecting people to look at the world through your lens. Try to understand why they're try to understand what it's like looking at the world through their lens, because we so often think of things in terms of black and white, like in a very binary way. Like, there's truth and lies. There's black and white. There's winners or losers. But there can be two truths. Like two truths can both, like two different perceptions can both be true at the same time. That's obvious. I mean, so if you start assuming that, yeah, you know what, my version of the truth isn't the only version of the truth, and somebody else's version of the truth may very well be as equally valid as mine, or it's as equally true to them as their truth is to me, then it allows you to build sort of an emotional bridge to that person and try to understand the similarities in your unique truths, or the opportunities in your unique truths, or the differences in your unique truths, and how to bridge them. Okay. The next one is super important. Interpreting things in the most benign way possible is helpful. So we had a call in our mastermind group. We were talking about this in our mastermind group, and I'll give you a very good example. So guy in the mastermind group, is really wanting to deepen his relationship with his wife. She has a tendency, I think she's dealing with some pretty severe emotional dysregulation. Maybe she suffered from trauma, or honestly, maybe it's just this particular guy's point of view, whatever. The point is, though, that one of the things that he said was, whenever we get in an argument, she freaks out and she just fucking tries to hurt me. Okay, so if you assume that what she is doing is trying to hurt you, you're done. You're not going to, like, if I am dealing with a person, I think they're actually trying to hurt me. Like, I'm not going to want to interact with them. I'm not going to want to understand them. But what if you interpreted things in a more benign way? Because you actually don't really know what's going on a lot of the time. So maybe another way of looking at it is, like she's really dealing with some profound stress from something that she experienced that she hasn't healed from. Or, God, maybe she had a shit day at work. Or maybe, there are a million ways to interpret it. But what we tend to do is we take a sliver of information and we just assume the worst about somebody. And that just closes doors, puts up barriers, and is very, very isolating and does not in any way foster human connection. And I want to say like about all these things, they're not easy. Okay. These are not easy things to do, especially if you are in the middle of like an argument or you have somebody who's like, you feel like is attacking you, but they are skills that you can learn and you got to practice them over and over and over again. So I'll tell you like a story from my own personal situation. Like, so Tanya can have this, she's German, right? So my beautiful, amazing wife who's upstairs making this amazing roasted cauliflower right now. I love you, babe. She is German, right? Germans have this way of like just telling you like it is, man. And so she can be, and they also have this way, and I'm not trying to stereotype an entire race, but I'm stereotyping an entire race or ethnicity. So, so basically, you know, she can be very, if she's explaining to me how I could do something better, she can be fairly, let's say, direct. Okay. And so I can look at that two ways. And this is a perfect example of interpreting things in the most benign way possible. So the one is, fuck, she's critical. Like, and God, I'm so sick of it. And I don't want to listen to her. Another way is, you know, she really believes in my capabilities as a human being. And she wants to help me in her own way be better. Right? And so which one of those two ways is a better way of looking at it for fostering a relationship? If I can look at it the second way, I'm going to be much more receptive to the wisdom and the insight that she actually has to say. And there's always a lot of it in there. But again, it's not easy because our immediate defense mechanisms and thought patterns, all those, you know, kind of take over. Our ego takes over. But I don't need to change her. I can't change her. I can only change me. And if I just make a conscious choice to change the way I look at the situation, it allows me to, it's like a flower blooming or something. It allows me to uncover the inherent goodness in the message that she's delivering, right? Okay, so that's number 4. Number 5 is curiosity is the opposite of anger. Very important, right? So instead of somebody like being upset with you or you disagreeing about something, instead of getting pissed about it, be curious. What's going on with this person to cause them to be this way? What was it that I actually did that might have caused this? So I'll give you an example. So I made some, some of you may have listened to that last podcast episode I did about Cindy, trying to tell it for her point of view. So, you know, there's some people that have called me out on YouTube and basically saying, you know, you killed your wife and you've got her blood on your hands, you selfish, you know, narcissistic prick. Some of that stuff may be true. The narcissistic, selfish prick, who knows? But so there's 2 ways to look at that. The first way might be, you asshole people, how dare you say something like that, blah, blah, blah. The other way is, I wonder if there is something to what they say in the sense that, is there an opportunity here for me to maybe deliver the message in a different way or whatever whatever it happens to be, but being genuinely curious about where the opportunity is in those words instead of just shutting it down is what actually led me to create that podcast episode, which I know really helps some people because they told me. So if you can be genuinely curious about why someone is doing the things they are doing, saying the things they're saying, it really has a way of negating anger. I don't think you can hold those two emotions, I guess, at the same time. So assumption 5 is curiosity is the opposite of anger. And people who approach life with genuine curiosity are way more effective, which leads to the next point. So I'll give you another point of view. I was talking to my mother-in-law the other day, and I was making some claim about having making some statement about having having expectations of other people. And she challenged me and said, well, I don't think that's right. And so a less mature, say, version of myself, not saying I'm anyway mature, I can be quite immature at times, but might have gotten defensive about that and said, well, no, you know, my point of view is right. And blah, I mean, I definitely would have done this. But what I was really curious instead, because I said, I was trying to explain myself and I realized I actually have no idea what the fuck I'm even talking about right now. Because I actually think what I said made no sense. And then I got really curious about my mother-in-law's point of view. And so it really diffused the anger and I got to learn something at the same time. So curiosity is the opposite of anger. And lastly, and most importantly, and this is especially for the guys out there, instead of being right, be effective. Okay? You need to understand what you want to accomplish in an interaction and understand that striving for effectiveness is way better than striving to be right. Okay, so that means that if you are talking to your spouse and your spouse is super upset about something and you are disagreeing and you are absolutely sure that you are right, what's the cost of being, quote, right? Because first of all, even no matter how sure you are, you're right, you might not be. And second of all, it's like a scorched earth policy. If you're going to, stand your ground and be right at all costs, what is the effect of that? Like, what is the cost benefit on that? Is it like a Pyrrhic victory where, you torch your frickin' relationship on the altar of being right? Or can you be effective? And one of the ways where curiosity can help is you can be curious about what would it mean to be effective? What do we both want out of the situation? And is there an alternative to me being, me walking away as the quote winner? So instead of being right, always strive to be effective. And being effective is kind of context or situational specific. So you need to be clear in the moment about what it means to be effective. So, okay, those are the 6 assumptions. So everyone is doing the best they can in the moment. The things people are doing make sense to them. There is no single truth, so stop looking for it. Interpreting things in the most benign way possible is helpful. Curiosity is the opposite of anger. And instead of being right, be effective. Okay, so those are 6 assumptions that I'm telling you, if you start to look at the world with those assumptions and start to put those into practice, it will dramatically change how you interact with people and how open you are to learning new things and creating new relationships and nurturing and deepening the relationships that you have. And again, sometimes it's really freaking hard to do this. But it just takes practice, and it just takes practice, and learning and talking about it. And, it never ends, right? So try that out. I would love to hear what you think about what I just said and how it works for you, because I think it could be a game changer. All right. Now we'll end this episode like I end every episode. If you are struggling, I've struggled too. And if you ever want to talk to me, I want you to know that I will not judge you. Until next time, guys.